aspects to it, and that we put those not just as theory that we talk about, but we actually put that decolonial action into practice. And one way that we can do that is by supporting the Duwamish tribe, whose land we are currently on right now. They are still not federally recognized, and therefore they do not receive a lot of the financial support from the federal government. So one way we can help them is by paying real rent. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with real rent Duwamish, but you can pay whatever you can afford each month, and the money goes directly to the tribe and helps them support everything that they need to sustain themselves here on this land, as they have done for tens of thousands of years. And last time I checked, they were almost at 10,000 real renters. So super, super close to reaching that goal of 10,000 real renters. And if you haven't yet joined Real Rent, I would encourage you to do so now so that they can reach that goal. And we're going to get right into it. So I'm sure
sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let people know that we're recording.
Oh, thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. Yeah, we are recording this as well, in case people want to watch it later. Maybe some folks that signed up weren't able to make it tonight. So if you don't want your image used in the recording, feel free to turn off your camera. So thank you, Neil. Appreciate that. And so, yeah, just a really quick kind of high level overview of the solidarity budget. So I know that y'all are already familiar with this, but figured we'd just run through this real quick. So the solidarity budget is a shared vision and an organizing platform to win a 2021 city budget that's anti-racist, that is pro-Black, and that is towards a healthy future for all citizens of Seattle. We're partnering with King County Equity Now, Decrim Seattle, Got Green, Puget Sound Sage, Mazaska Talks, and a ton of other awesome organizations and community groups to advocate for the following demands in the 2021 budget. And we're just going to go through those demands relatively quickly. So the demands, as I'm sure you've heard before, are divest from SPD. We're advocating for the reallocation of 50% of the funds from the Seattle Police Department to Black communities and to community-led health and safety systems. And a really essential part of that reallocation of those funds is that it's done through what is known as participatory budgeting. So we want a true participatory budget process, not just a handpicked task force by the mayor or by city council. We have to make sure that the way these funds are spent are being determined by the people that are on the front lines of these communities that are the most affected, and that they have leadership in how these funds are spent. So, and tied to that is the preservation of vital public services. At the peak of the uprising this summer, the mayor and city council promised $100 million for Black communities. And we're here to make sure that those funds come from the city's bloated policing budget, and that they're not austerity measures, they're not austerity cuts from transportation, parks, COVID relief, and other vital services. So the next demand is that we want to increase community access to dignified emergency shelter and affordable housing, and that we decriminalize homeless services as well. So if you've been a member of the Seattle community for a long time, you're probably familiar with the navigation team, which was a team that went out to supposedly help the homeless community and ended up inflicting a lot more harm than they actually were originally intended to. So we're advocating for the funds from the navigation team to be reallocated to trusted and skilled community organizations that actually have a proven track record of working with houseless people. And then obviously all of y'all are from the climate community. So the Green New Deal is probably why you agreed to participate in this training tonight. And that's our fifth demand, is that the city council funds a position within the Office of Sustainability and Environment to support the Green New Deal Oversight Board. In 2019, we actually got city council to unanimously commit to a Green New Deal program, but then they never funded the position necessary to oversee the board. So we're demanding that they follow up on their promises from last year, and that they don't use the money from their Green New Deal commitments to go to the $100 million that the mayor promised. So we're refusing to pit our movements against each other by standing up for a solidarity budget. And we want to make sure that when that Green New Deal Oversight Board is created, that the members of that board are provided a stipend so that we can remove the barrier of participation for either low income people, young people, or the most impacted frontline community members to serve on that board, because we know it's not a Green New Deal unless these solutions actually come from frontline communities and those most affected by the climate crisis. And yeah, the last one is to stop the criminalization of poverty and mental health struggle. We would do this by expanding the definition of duress so that people who are experiencing poverty and mental health crises are not punished for it. And that's something that should be common sense, but we still have to advocate for. So appreciate y'all sitting through that. I'm sure you were all already familiar with that, but helps to have a little refresher. And the idea behind this project that we're doing right now, this storytelling project, is that we're focused on what's known as relational organizing. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this term as well, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, this is something that all of you already do all the time as organizers, as activists within your community. It's just a matter of reaching out to those closest to us and making sure that they're engaged with these issues. We just got off the tail end of a crazy election cycle. You probably received tons of text messages from random numbers. If you knew someone that lived in a swing state, their phone was probably getting blown up by people calling them all the time to make sure they were registered to vote. And while these tactics can be effective, it's actually proven to be much more effective when a volunteer reaches out to someone they know, as opposed to a volunteer reaching out to a stranger. So the idea behind this project is that we're going to be reaching out to members of our community, our peers, our loved ones, our friends, our family members, and activating them to support a solidarity budget. And we know that this is more effective because in this day, the message or the messenger actually matters just as much as the message itself. People have a sort of distrust of larger media networks. Social media is flooded with so much information. Many of it, or a lot of it, is negative, and that really turns people off. So we're trying to cut through that distrust and that kind of exhaustion with negative information on social media and create content on our social media platforms that people will want to engage with, and that will actually encourage people to show up and support the solidarity budget. And then it's worth noting that research has shown that it's also more effective. This form of relational organizing is more effective to turn out people of color and millennials for elections. And while this isn't an election, I think that the same principles apply, and it can be more effective in turning out people in our community. So yeah, we're on top of all that. We're going to be using video as a tool to do this. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we might use video, but the first of all is that we're still in a pandemic. We still need to be practicing social distancing. And that video can be a really effective tool to do this. So much of our communication as humans is visual, whether it's making eye contact or our expressions, and video is a tool that we can use to help bridge this gap in the era of social distancing so that we still are able to use all of those important communication tools and cues to convey our message. So we're going to watch a video from Anna and get right into it.
Hey, I'm Anna. I live in the North Ballard area, and I'm fighting for a solidarity budget because I see the harm that the police are doing to our communities and how expensive that is. It would be so simple to divest from the police and reinvest in places that would help our communities thrive. Places like healthcare, affordable housing, green jobs that will help our city sustain itself for years and years to come, and to become a more beautiful place where we can all thrive together.
Beautiful. So yeah, nice, short, sweet, simple, to the point. If you weren't able to hear that video or something, please let us know in the chat so that we can troubleshoot that. But I'm pretty sure it should have worked for everybody. And yeah, I mean, just to kind of further the points I was making earlier, we see so much information being shared on social media these days, but it's less likely that if you were to share the list of demands that I had in that previous slide, a lot of your friends, a lot of your peers, coworkers, family, they probably wouldn't take the time to read it, but a video of you talking to them directly is something that they're much more likely to engage with and listen to. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to work on how to tell those stories, how to record them in a way that is effective and engaging. And so, what we're going to do for the next little bit, we're going to go through some tips that we've put together on how to tell these stories about why you want to show up for the Solidarity budget. We're going to provide you with prompts to sort of get your ideas flowing and then take a little bit of time to write those ideas down. And then we'll break off into groups and do some sharing and feedback. Since it's such a small crew, I might participate in those groups as well so that we can, bounce ideas off each other and everybody has someone to talk to. Yeah, and I know I'm going fast, so if at any point you have a question about what we're talking about, have a comment or anything like that, feel free to drop it in the chat, or even if you like, you can come off mute since we're a relatively small group tonight, and just we can take your questions as they come. So no need to stay quiet. You can hop in at any time. But yeah, let's get into some storytelling stuff. So what makes a good story? I mean, the first thing that you want to consider, whether it's a short story like this for video, or whether you're writing a novel, or whether you're, writing letters to Congress, or whatever it might be, is you got to know your audience. And a lot of us, at least people that are on this call tonight, I think it's safe to assume that we might probably be speaking to other members of the climate community. What Sunrise Seattle and 350 Seattle really want to do as members of this coalition, this cross-class, cross-racial coalition that is showing up for the Solidarity budget, is we want to activate the climate community. So if you know that you're going to be speaking to other members of the climate community, you'll want to frame your story a different way than if you were speaking to members of your family or your coworkers that are not a part of the climate justice community or not a part of a social movement. Maybe you're going to be speaking to people that are more concerned with economic issues, that are more concerned with health issues, public safety issues. But what's great about the Solidarity budget is that we can contextualize it to be applicable to all of those issues that resonate with so many people. So next thing we really want to do is, sorry, did I hear someone else speaking up? No. Oh, it looks like Joy just joined us. So thank you for hopping in, Joy. We're getting into the storytelling part of this. And if you have any questions for stuff that you might have missed in the beginning, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll help you get caught up. But yeah, as I was saying, you got to know your audience as you take into consideration the framing for your story. And then you really want to consider what's most important to you, because that is what you're going to be able to speak the most eloquently about and the most passionately about. And that translates over video really well. So you don't want to just be memorizing some words that you don't care about. You want to be speaking about things that you're truly passionate about, because you will be able to convey that passion visually, and it will come across much stronger. And then next, just keep it simple. You want to use the facts, and we'll give you plenty of talking points and information that you can draw on to help tell your story. But you don't want to bog people down in like some complicated budget analyses. Like, you don't want to say, oh, last week we were supposed to get this many council members to sign on to a Form C amendment in order to reallocate resources from the hiring budget to not hire 140. It's, that stuff's way too complicated. We want to keep it simple so that people can engage with it more easily. And if they have follow-up questions, they'll be able to ask you those follow-up questions later. And one thing that I think works well in these type of stories is utilizing our personal experiences. So if you have stories, if you have, different things that you've gone through this year or in previous years that have really shaped your opinion and your ideas on this topic, you can tell that story. And that's a powerful story that will resonate with people because it's your truth that you're speaking. I worked with a filmmaker several years ago who told me this quote that really stuck with me. And it's, from the specific comes the universal. So when we tell specific stories about ourselves or members of our community, we're actually able to speak to greater universal truths through those specific stories. So uh, don't think that you have to stay on too high of a level. You can actually get bogged. You can actually tell something really specific to your personal lived experience with these issues, and it'll be that much more powerful because of it. And yeah, so Joy, you missed this video. If y'all don't mind, I'm actually going to play this video again so that Joy can watch it, and then we'll talk about why it worked so well. So apologies to the folks that just watched this, but it's short, so I think it's worth.
Hey, I'm Anna. I live in the North Ballard area, and I'm fighting for a solidarity budget because I see the harm that the police are doing to our communities and how expensive that is. It would be so simple to divest from the police and reinvest in places that would help our communities thrive. Places like healthcare, affordable housing, green jobs that will help our city sustain itself for years and years to come and to become a more beautiful place where we can all thrive together.
Awesome. So yeah, there's some really clear reasons that video worked well. Obviously, she was very concise and well spoken, but she started with something personal. She said, I see the harm that police do. It's something that she's witnessed, that she knows is happening. And she immediately connects that to the city's budget. So I see the harm the police do, and I know how expensive that is. And then at the end, she ties in demands or aspects of the demands, such as investments in affordable housing, green jobs. And she chose those aspects of the demands because she knew that she was speaking to the climate justice community and that those demands would resonate with them. So just a really good example of knowing your audience and including personal elements to make a connection to the budget and advocate for what we need. So now, yeah, we're going to watch another example. It's a little bit different. And yeah, we'll talk about what worked for this one and what didn't after we watch it. Hi, my name's Austin. I've lived in Seattle my entire life, and I'm supporting Solidarity Budget because as the uprisings began in the wake of George Floyd's death, I watched just how militarized the Seattle Police Department had become and began to learn about how expensive it was for them to be tear gassing people that were peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights in the streets. Then, at the end of summer, as the wildfires choked our entire city, I began to think more about how we are allocating resources to the wrong departments in our city. The Seattle Police Department makes up almost a quarter of the city's general fund. That's over $400 million that just go to the Seattle Police Department, while services such as the departments for affordable housing and education and sustainability in the environment remain some of the lowest funded services in our communities. I think it would make so much more sense to take money from that $400 million in the general fund for the SPD and reinvest it in things like green jobs so that we can create a city that will help everybody thrive together in the future. All right, so I tried to take a different approach there from Anna so that I could give you another example of what these stories might look like. Definitely just got a note there. I was speaking way too fast. That's a bad habit of mine, and so apologies for kind of rushing through that. But my idea behind this approach was that I wanted to include, obviously, things that I've lived through, things that I've experienced, such as, the wildfires this summer, but then connect it to an actual specific detail about the budget, which was this quarter of the city's general fund goes to SPD. So whereas Anna, hers was kind of speaking on a higher level, more broadly, I took the approach of focusing on a specific aspect of the budget that stood out to me, while still trying to keep it relatively clear and simple. So different approaches that you could take, and you got to pick whichever one works best for you. So yeah, I've kind of spoken about this already, but we want to keep these things relatively short. 30 to 60 seconds is ideal, but I know that's difficult sometimes. So the length is going to really depend on where you plan to share it. We think it'd be awesome to get these shared on social media, but some people may choose to share them with their family. Maybe this is something that you just want to send out in an email to all your family members in the Seattle King County area to explain to them why you support the budget. The solidarity budget. And in that instance, it could be longer. It doesn't have to be 30 to 60 seconds. If you're going on Instagram, you probably want to keep it in that 60-second range. But then if you're going on somewhere like Twitter or Facebook that have fewer restrictions on video length, then you could absolutely have it be longer than a minute. but I would keep in mind that research has shown that our attention spans these days are super, super short. And so people generally aren't going to watch videos that are longer than 2 minutes unless they're really, really engaging. So keeping it in that 60-second range is probably ideal. And yeah, so now I think Neil has a link to some talking points that we're going to drop into the chat so you can reference these talking points when coming up with your story. Just keep in mind that this document with these public comments, this document with these talking points was put together for a public comment period earlier in the budget cycle. And so some of it has changed and you may need to adapt the language accordingly. So for example, the first point I'm pretty sure is about the hiring freeze for SPD. We did not succeed in getting that to my knowledge. So you don't want to include that talking point in there. You might want to focus on, for example, talking point number 5, which is about the criminalization of homelessness. And one example of how you might do this, that talking point reads, instead of criminalizing homelessness, we can fund dignified emergency shelter, basic sanitation, and affordable housing. I would want to reword this in a way that is applicable to, my lived experience here in Seattle. So it could be something like, I've lived in Seattle my entire life, and in the past 5 years, I've seen our housing crisis get worse and worse, and seen the terrible impacts that's had on community members in my neighborhood. I don't think that my tax dollars should be spent punishing people for circumstances that are out of their control. I want my tax dollars to be going to funding dignified emergency shelter, basic sanitation, and affordable housing. So that's kind of an example of how you could take our housing points and then tie in your specific experiences and why it matters to you. And then once again, keep it simple. It's okay for these to be broad because you can also think of it as a conversation starter. You just frame the story, and then when people have follow-up questions about the details, that's great. You want those follow-up questions from your community because that means they're engaged with you, and it creates an opportunity to have a conversation where you could move someone from passive allyship over to active allyship and someone that will actively be working to get this solidarity budget passed. So if people are asking you questions, that's a good thing. And as far as keeping it short, one suggestion would just be focusing on 1 or 2 of the demands and not trying to include, every single talking point or every single demand in your video. All right. And so, yeah, now just want to take a few minutes and do kind of a brainstorming session. So this is known as Think, Write, Share. And we're just going to take a few minutes, ponder these questions. So if you could all pick one, whether it's what does climate justice mean to you, or why are you showing up for the solidarity budget, just start writing about whatever inspires you from those prompts, and we'll use that to form a story or form the beginning of the story that we're going to share. And then you'll go into a breakout room with a partner and share that with them and have an opportunity to provide feedback for each other. So if you can all start working on your story right now, we're just going to take 3 minutes to work on that. So I'll call everybody back in 3 minutes at 4:33. And then we'll go into breakout rooms. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat in the meantime. So take a few more seconds to kind of wrap up your ideas about how you might tell your story. I know it's pretty quick. This is supposed to just be an opportunity to kind of get our ideas flowing. I don't expect you to have a fully, perfectly formulated story to share just yet, but we're going to take what we're working with and share it with a partner so that we can begin getting feedback on these and refining these ideas and these stories. So what we're going to do now is go into breakout rooms with a partner, and Neil is going to put us in those rooms. Once you get the invitation to go in the room, you'll have 10 minutes. And so I encourage you to take, roughly 1 minute each. So one person will start, you have 1 minute to share your story, and then 4 minutes from your partner to provide you with feedback, and then you switch and the other person tells their story, and then the partner gives them feedback. And once you're in those breakout rooms, we'll actually send you some prompts to help you with the feedback process. Great. So Neil, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and set up those breakout rooms. Wonderful. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that was enough time. Like I said earlier, don't expect you to have a perfectly crafted story just in a matter of minutes, but hopefully just bouncing ideas around and getting someone to listen to them was useful. So now there'll be an opportunity at the end if folks would like to share their story with the group. But before we get into that, I just wanted to go over some tips on how to record these videos. So this is just going to cover some basic stuff such as really, fundamental understandings of lighting, some tips on how you might compose the video, and some basic tips on how to make sure that the audio is good. So don't get overwhelmed by this graphic on 3-point lighting. There's just a couple things that I wanted to pull out from that. But when you are setting up a video, obviously, as I was talking about at the beginning of this training, is that we're using video because so much of communication is visual, and people respond well when you make eye contact with your audience, and the social and emotional cues that come from our facial expressions. So it's important that we have good lighting for these videos so that all of those communication cues can come across. So things you might want to consider with lighting, or the source of the lighting. Is it sunlight? Is it artificial light? And the direction of the lighting. So if we look at this little graph right here, you can ignore that one in the upper right-hand corner that says fill light. We're not going to worry about this. The only things I wanted to talk about are the ideas of a key light and a backlight. So the key light is basically whatever your strongest light source is. So in this instance, I can't actually see myself on camera right now because I'm doing a screen share, but you should be able to tell that the light source is coming from my right-hand side right now. It's a lamp that's right behind my computer screen. And I actually have it in the perfect position for a nice pleasing key light, which is just about 45 degrees to the right of the camera. You're not always going to be able to move your lights, especially if you're using, say, the sun from your window in your bedroom. So you can adjust the position of the camera and the position of you and your body so that the light is hitting you at the most flattering angle possible. And we've got those two examples of screenshots from different lighting tutorials. And basically, what you want to avoid is just a harsh backlight, because we need to see your eyes and all those other social cues that we get visually. If the light behind you is way too strong, you're just going to be in a shadow and we're not going to be able to see you. And I have some examples of this that we'll get to in a second that'll probably help make it make a little more sense. Then next thing is composition. There's a lot of factors to how you compose a shot, but really there's just a couple that we want to consider for this project. And that's, first of all, how you compose your shot will be determined by the platform on which you're sharing the video. So if you wanted to post something like this on your Instagram story, you might end up actually using your phone to record, a vertical video, because then the video, since it will be viewed on mobile devices, the vertical video will take up a larger percentage of the screen, and we'll get more engagement that way. But if you chose to, say, send your video to members of your family, maybe you're just going to email it out to them or something like that, then you might go with the more traditional horizontal format from your video. Depends on the platform you're sharing it on, depends on what you want to do with it. But that's the first consideration that you need to take into account when you're composing the shot. And the second is eye level. I see so many bad cell phone videos of people taking their phone and it's like below their chin and looking up their nose, and nobody wants to stare up your nose the whole video. So as I was talking about, those social cues, those visual cues, it's really important to have the camera at eye level, because that has a subtle psychological effect on the audience that makes you feel trustworthy. So if we're looking up at you, you're not going to appear as trustworthy as if the camera is eye level with you. So that's actually a really important part of how you compose your shot. And then the background, you know, are there things in the background that are distracting? Are there things in the background that support your story? Just take into consideration what's behind you, because you don't want, you know, something that could be distracting in the background. And yeah, so here are some examples of what I'm talking about. This will hopefully make things a little bit clearer. You got the good example on the left, bad example on the right. The good lighting and composition, camera's eye level, it's perfect. She positioned her computer that was recording the video with a window behind her. So the light is coming in from behind the camera onto her face. Because it's daylight coming in through a window, it's very soft and there's no shadows on her face. You can see all of the detail that you need to, and it's really flattering to have that nice soft daylight coming in. One note about the background, me personally, I would have made my bed, but you know, she chose to have a messy bed in the background, so that's a personal choice. But yeah, this other example is just everything you don't want to do pretty much. It's camera's way below eye level. It's just kind of weird looking. The light source is directly behind her. And because you're probably going to be recording this on either a cell phone or maybe your computer, the camera in those devices is set to expose the video for whatever the brightest source of light is. So if you have a really bright light coming in behind you, the camera is going to adjust the exposure for that, and then your face is going to be too dark, and we don't want that, obviously. So that could have all been remedied if she had just flipped the camera around and recorded in the other direction, and it would have looked like the video or the screenshot that we see on the left. So really, really simple, would have taken 2 seconds to fix, and it would have made a huge difference. Cool. And then the last thing's audio. If you've got headphones like this is going to give you probably the easiest way to get good audio, just because the microphone is as close as possible to your face. If you don't have headphones like that, you want to consider your location, because that makes a big difference. There's a concept called room tone, and basically what that is the acoustic quality of the room that you're in. So if you're in a huge empty room, it's going to have a lot of echo and it's going to kind of sound weird. So smaller furnished rooms will have less echo. Even say, you know, just a rug on a floor or paintings hung on a wall will help reduce that echo and will make things sound a lot better. And then, yeah, if you choose to record your video outside, you want to make sure that, you know, you're not standing right next to a highway, or that there aren't airplanes overhead, and, you know, just simple stuff like that. But yeah, those are the main tips I have for recording your videos. The best thing that we can all do is actually help support each other as we record these. And we can do that by posting these videos in the Slack channel. So we have a Slack channel set up for the Seattle for a Green New Deal community. If you're not already a part of it, which I assume most of you are, you should definitely join it. It's Seattle Green New Deal HQ.slack.com. And yeah, if you record a video and you want some feedback on it, you can post it in there, and then we'll help review it. We'll give you tips, or most likely we're just going to tell you it's awesome and that you should share it, because we know that you're going to nail this. And then once you've posted it, if you posted it on a public social media page, if your own pages are public, then we can help lift it up by engaging with it. You share the link in that Slack channel, we'll all go like it. We know that these algorithms for social media are based on engagement. So having other people to help kind of engage with your post could be a way to get more people to see it. And yeah, there's a tight deadline for this stuff. The committee vote is this week on the 18th and 19th. And so it'll be really useful if you can share this stuff on your Instagram, or sorry, whatever social media page you choose before the 18th, and tag your council member in it. And then that's just going to help, you know, amplify the conversation, and amplify these voices, and make sure that they hear it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We'd love to see you in the Slack channel, and love to help you get these stories shared out. And Yeah, I know we had a small group tonight. I appreciate you all for being here. So I would love it if folks wanted to share what they've been discussing. Oh, I see. Cool. So Joy, so if you're residents outside of Seattle, I you can still participate in this conversation. I think it's really important that we're all advocating for to uplift the demands of the, Black organizers that are leading this campaign. So even if you're not a resident of Seattle, I still think that our collective voices are essential in this conversation. So Joy, feel free to come off mute. We don't have to, it's such a small group that we can all just have a conversation together. But Joy, are you in King County or are you in?
Yeah, I'm actually in Redmond.
Cool, cool. And so I imagine that some of your friends probably live in Seattle. And so if you were to make a video like this, your friends that are residents of Seattle would see it, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I guess just to ensure that um, it would still be helpful, even though I'm not a resident or have a council member in that area.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it's still helpful because this is something that we were kind of touching on at the beginning of this, but uh, the idea behind 350 Seattle and Sunrise doing this little storytelling project is that we're trying to activate members of the climate community. So maybe other people that are concerned about climate issues that live in Seattle, but they don't know that there's a budget vote coming up that will impact the opportunity to weatherize our buildings, and which will have an impact on the amount of fossil fuels that they use. So speaking about something like that that's important to you, that you think your friends in Seattle would resonate with, will actually have a big impact. Sorry, that was kind of a rambly answer. I don't know if that really addressed your concerns or not.
Oh, it did. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions? Well,
I just want to mention real quick, I help run the Sunrise Movement Seattle social media account, so I'd be happy to amplify anyone's videos. We've already posted a few, but anyone who records some, we would really love to get those up on our page if you want.
Really appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, you've been killing it all week, so thank you.
No, they're great videos, yeah, and the more the better, I think. So if you want yours up on there, let us know.
Beautiful. Appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, the shout out to all the people running social media. I'm not cut out for that. So a lot of gratitude to all y'all that are running the behind the scenes work on the social media campaign. It's always kind of hectic leading up to a vote like this. But yeah, I would say I just want to leave space. Does anybody else have other questions about this right now?
I guess given that it seems like social media video is sort of where we need to sort of focus right now, especially with the whole COVID numbers going up and possibly not really being on the ground as much. I'm just wondering, what are ways that messages can still go out and outside of our vacuum, right? Like our own Instagram, our own Facebook. I mean, it's kind of like a vacuum that we live in. So I guess, one way with Matt or other avenues to get messages out there, but anything else that maybe you already talked about in the beginning that I might have missed in ways to just amplify things, given here we are now wintertime, we can't really be out as much.
No, that's a super good point, Joy. Yeah, this, as I was saying a minute ago, the idea behind this was kind of that we're activating the climate community. So this project was meant to kind of be preaching to the choir a little bit, to try to get people that were a part of the climate community to really show up for the solidarity budget. But I think you raise a great point that we should also be trying to get beyond that choir. And one idea that I have, this would work for me personally, I don't know if it would work for you or not, but it would be to, instead of posting it on my social media page where all my friends follow me, would be to send it via email to members of my family, maybe people that are concerned about economic issues, about issues of homelessness or public health and safety. So you could consider, instead of posting it just on a social media page where you think that it's just going to be seen by other members of the movement, you could, send it out to your friends that are actually outside of the movement, or your family members that are outside of the movement, via email or something like that. That's kind of my only idea at the moment. So I'm totally open to other ideas about how we could get these messages beyond just our immediate circles.
So given that, and that you want to take your audience into account, it may make sense to make multiples of these, because different audiences may be swayed by different arguments.
Mm-hmm. That's a super good point. Thank you, Neil. Yeah. So it would be relatively easy to say, hey, I'm going to make a 30-second video about why I support the solidarity budget and the Green New Deal. And that goes on my social media page where I know I have climate activists following me. And then I'm also going to make a video about recovery from COVID and how the solidarity budget prioritizes COVID recovery to help, the people who need it most. So there's an opportunity there to adapt your messaging to your audience, because the solidarity budget really touches on issues that are applicable to people from all walks of life in the city. So yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to create more work for y'all, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of a way we could adapt this stuff. Does anybody have any other questions right now? Because it's 5 o'clock, so I think we should probably move it to a close. I really appreciate y'all being here with us again. I know we had a small group, but I'm glad that we were able to break off in pairs to do some sharing. And I look forward to seeing your videos in the Slack channel so that we can give them feedback and get them shared out. So thanks, everybody. And I hope y'all have a good night.